Welcome back to Late Checkout, the motel lounge where the lights stay dim, the questions linger, and the door never really stays locked. Truthfully, Dan Cleary is someone I see once a week through the soft glow of a screen from over 5,000 miles away. We've never met face to face. I've never seen the true contour of his smile, or how he carries himself when the camera's off. And yet, the impression he's made on me is as real as the room you're sitting in right now. Dan is the host of a podcast called Others from Another Mother. You can find a link to this in the description. Like me, Dan comes from the world of music, that peculiar place where you spend half your life chasing silence and the other half filling it. His ideas, his solace, his conclusions, they've become a calming voice in my week, a much-needed counterweight to the fast headlines and the horror show of daily news. In a world that demands we react before we even understand, Dan offers something rare, a measured approach, a quiet, steady lens on the phenomenon and the questions we circle here at the motel. I hope in the next hour or so, you'll find the same comfort, that same invitation to breathe for a moment and wonder. So, wherever you're listening, alone in your room, drifting off in the dark, or pulling your car further into the night, settle in, pour yourself something warm. Let's check out together. Dan, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Xander. Appreciate it.
I say tonight, it's noon-ish for you, and I've just gone through the bedtime from hell. So I'm going to be honest, I've got a nice little alcoholic beverage right now. What are you drinking right now?
A coffee drink. It's called a vanilla ice blended from my local coffee spot, and then a nice cup of ice water. Yeah.
I see you with those a lot. That's a local, that's a regular for you, is it?
Southern California place, and I do it kind of every day. It's kind of my first meal of the day. And then I have
Your first meal.
Kinda. I eat like a child, like a complete child. And I'll have that that's kind of like my lunch. And then I'll have dinner, which is some kind of pickup food somewhere. And then just chips and grapes until 4 or 5 in the morning.
So before I get to my first question, I want to pull you up on that. So here in the UK, when I wake up, roughly between 6:30 and 7 a.m., you are still going hard over in LA. So that's like 10 p.m. or so for you, I guess. But I find that you're still going at like my 9 a.m., which is 1 a.m. your time. What are you doing? Are you a night owl?
Since I was a little kid. So for the last 8, 9, 10 months, I've been going to bed between like 4 and 5 a.m. every night.
And you're just cool with that?
Yeah.
You can just do that?
Yeah. I mean, I get the same amount of sleep as everybody else, just at a very weird time of the day. So I'll go to bed at 5 and get up at 11 or 12. This is also one of the beauties of not having kids or pets or plants.
I guess we'll get into this as well, but I guess it kind of suits your line of work as well.
Very much.
Which we will also get into, but I do need to get to my first question.
Sure.
And to be fair, you may have already answered it, but why do you need a late checkout?
Specifically today, I need it because the last couple weeks, I've been very heavy into researching and relearning, or at least brushing up on UFO abductions and that whole phenomenon has just been so interesting to me my whole life. And then there's something that kind of came up for me recently, personally. I didn't have an experience, but something has come up that's making me re-look into all those cases and find similarities and learning more about the hypnotic regression type stuff. So last night was a bunch of that kind of stuff. And then I topped off the night by rewatching The Matrix for the first time in a very long time. And that was a whole new experience now.
Is it different now that you've experienced the last 2 years?
Yes, very much. Have you watched it recently? Or are you familiar enough?
I'm extremely familiar with The Matrix, with the exception of the most recent one, because it's just not my jam. It's the color filters are not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the first film, funnily enough, what I do on the Dreamland Motel, the whole sleep video thing, there's a whole market on YouTube for exactly the same thing, but for The Matrix. It's just nothing but Matrix lore sleep videos.
No way.
So, yeah. So I know so much about The Matrix. So how much do you want to talk about that, the abduction stuff that you've been not experiencing directly, but have been in contact with lately? Absolutely none.
None,
Right,
none
okay.
at the moment. But I have been exposed to something very interesting lately that hopefully I can talk about at some point. But at the moment, nothing.
Absolutely nothing. How about a slightly broader question? Because you talked about watching The Fourth Kind the other day.
Yes.
I've also seen The Fourth Kind a couple of times, and I struggle because it's a poor movie. But there's something about hypnotic regression itself which I find terrifying.
Explain why.
Because these guys are on a couch and they are experiencing it again, and you have to sit there and watch them go through it. I mean, this is not just related to what you've been going through over the past week or two. This is well documented at this point. Like, there are videos of, I think, Bledsoe, Bob Lazar has even done hypnotic regression. Have you related that to what you've been exposed to recently? Can you relate, I think? Is that a safe enough question?
Very much, yeah. And I saw The Fourth Kind in the theater when it came out. I was so excited. You know, it was, if people aren't familiar, it's a movie that was pitched as based on true events, where they're going to work in actual therapy sessions, hypnotic sessions into the film. It's done in a very clever way, but all of that was apparently untrue. But when I first saw the movie, I still thought it was real at that point. And even with that, I thought the movie was not executed very well. I don't know. I could never figure out what the problem was. But I feel like being so immersed in this topic lately and talking to you guys on the roundtable often, I saw it in a new light and really, really enjoyed it. Like, to the point where this last time I watched it, I was like, this movie's incredible. So I made a turn. Just seeing it, sometimes it takes, I mean, with all things in life, is coming at something from a different perspective, and it can completely change the way you take it in or the way that you think about it. So going into it the last time I watched it was just more open-minded of, you know, what would this experience be like for the patients and for the therapist, and just taking the film style or the acting out of it, I had a much more enjoyable time, and I feel like I learned more from it. And the fact that it kind of works in this idea of this missing persons problem that we have in the world. The idea that some of that could be abductions was just like, ooh, interesting.
How do you quantify that?
Sure. And I'm not saying that I believe that's what it is, but having that be an option, definitely just I'm gonna keep in the back of my brain of, okay, I'm gonna catalog that. That's an interesting idea, and then move forward.
They play with the owls a lot in that film as well, don't they?
Yep, quite a bit.
And as well, I find that the owls and the way they kind of use them in the film, it kind of sort of reminds me of Communion and the front page. It's the same image in my head,
Yep.
and it's equally terrifying.
And you probably know that, the lore, like back when we were kids, and you hear about that, if you're abducted, the beings would kind of implant these false memories that you actually just saw a deer or you saw an owl. And that particular barn owl has those kind of oval, angled black eyes. Yeah, there's one shot in that movie where the owl, they follow it and the head turns around and follows the camera the whole way. It's an incredible shot, but spooky. It's unnerving.
I would like to talk about what you actually do as a line of work, because I have a feeling that this is actually quite popular amongst musicians, the interest itself. Because we had, what's the Aerosmith's lead singer?
Steven Tyler.
He was on Rogan, wasn't he? Just absolutely obsessed with Greer.
Yep.
I assume you get into some pretty weird late night talks. I've done it myself. I have, because I've done I've not done what you do, but I've done like roadieing and stuff back when I was at university. And some of the conversations you get into used to get like pretty out there.
I think that's an understatement. I think, I'm a guitar tech, so I'm a roadie as well, and I've been touring around the world for 20 years, tuning guitars.
What are some of the bands that?
I worked for Jane's Addiction for 17 years. I worked for Marilyn Manson offhand for 3 or 4 years. I've been out with Ministry and Danny Harrison and Eddie Vedder and a bunch of really great experiences over the years. And I've definitely found that creative-minded, whether you work in film or TV or especially music, you're just so much more open-minded to conversations that other people kind of give pause to a little bit. And I've definitely had some just super interesting conversations with some wild people. And another cool thing of that is that when you're on tour, sometimes you're blown away by the kind of people that end up like backstage at shows, because
Oh yeah.
it's not just rock stars and hot chicks that are backstage. Sometimes it's military folks, and it's people somewhat high-ranking officials, and there's politicians, and those people have interest too. So there's been some very, very out of nowhere hangs that have happened over the course of my 20 years, for sure.
And is that how you met Jeremy Corbell? Because you have, as far as I'm aware, quite a close friendship with Corbell at the moment.
I had a radio show / podcast with Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction for 10 years, and that was called Dark Matter. And it was, on the regular radio waves, then it was just on internet, then it was a podcast. We kind of bounced around a lot. But at a certain point, I kind of became producer, co-host, and sort of, I guess, talent booker for that for a while. And I had seen Jeremy's film. I didn't know much about Jeremy at all. This is probably 2017. I saw his film Hunt for the Skinwalker, about, Skinwalker Ranch and the Skinwalkers. And I just reached out to him on Twitter. I sent a DM and just said, this is who I am. I saw your film. I have this show with Dave Navarro. Would you want to come on and talk about your film? And he said, of course, that sounds great. So he came to our show, and Navarro was so rude to him. I couldn't believe it. To the point that after the show, I was driving Dave home. I said, dude, what was that? Like you got up and took a leak in the middle of him answering one of your questions, and you were so rude and dismissive about his film. Like you're making me feel like look like a complete asshole. Like you have to call him and apologize to him. Like I'm mortified. And yeah, so and he wasn't trying to be mean. He's just like he didn't. He wasn't buying the Skinwalker stuff at that moment. And by the way, Navarro is, speaking of interesting folks, he was a card-carrying member of MUFON for years. Like Navarro
Really?
was oh yeah, he's a UFO guy from the beginning, like Chariots of the Gods. He read the books. He knows,
Wild.
he's a well-versed guy. And he had kind of given up in the early teens, like 2012, 13, 14, he was kind of out. He goes, dude, we would know by now. Like, there's nothing to this. He goes, I think I've changed my mind. And I'm like, just stick with it. You got to stick with it.
It's just about to get so good.
And then 2017 happened. And when that New York Times article came out, he was my first phone call. I was like, dude, the Pentagon just admitted it. Check out this article. Like, and there's videos. And he was like, I'm back in. Let's do this. And so anyway, so the Jeremy interview, which is still online, you can find it online. It was a good time, and that kind of started our friendship. Dave did call him and apologized.
Good.
During that interview, or maybe afterwards, Jeremy was telling us about he was working on this film about Bob Lazar. This is before his Bob movie came out. And he goes, it's the first long form interview he's done in forever. And he's like, I'm really excited about it. And I think it's going to turn out great. He invited us to the premiere of it in LA. And there's like a Q&A that you can find online. He asked Bob one of my questions. That was pretty cool. And then we kind of just stayed close after that. Not super close, but the last few years, we've definitely gotten a lot closer. And I really respect what he does, and he's very much like a man of his word. He's a good dude. Jeremy Corbell is a good dude.
So probably about a year ago now, before I was working with Clint and before I really was on the other side of I think I said this in the last episode, the other side of the glass, where it's like, okay, now you're being watched. I was actually quite critical of Corbell, and I really regret that now, because I've come to realize that certain things really do need to happen in a particular order. You cannot just throw things out like onto the internet for everyone to read and watch. You really do have to be careful. And I think a lot of people don't realize, or at least they don't really process the fact that if this is real, we genuinely are talking about life and death for some of these whistleblowers. So you have to treat them with the due respect. Like the recent Matt Brown thing, it would have been very easy for Corbell to have just dumped his identity online when Immaculate Constellation came out. But that could have got the guy killed. Genuinely could have got the man killed. And I think I even posted my frustration on Reddit back in the day, like how I was just, it was like, I think I called it an edge play by Jeremy. I just feel like I'm constantly being edged. But honestly, at this point, I completely understand why he does things in the way he does them.
Yep.
And I wish more people would understand that as well, because if we believe it, we have to understand this really is life and death.
100%. And I know that Jeremy gets comments a lot about his like disposition, the way he acts on camera, or the way he is on camera, which
He's
is
very excited. He's
very
very
excited.
energetic. Yeah.
But I will tell you, that is genuine. And the things that he says on camera are the same things that he says off camera. And he does take his job incredibly seriously. He really does care about protecting sources, to the point that I know that he trusts me. I know that he trusts me, and I also know that he's done background checks on me. Like I know that he kind of told me this recently that he's had like proper background checks done on me, and
A guitar
even
tech from
yeah,
LA. He's
yep,
just
yep.
could be a CIA plant. You never know.
And again, it shows you how professional he is because his gut can tell him a lot, but you can't always trust that, and
Yeah.
he just he can't take those kind of risks. So what I'm saying is he trusts me to, like, I think very much he trusts me, but he also would never tell me even that secret information or private information. Like if before Matt Brown was public, if I were to ask him anything about Matt Brown, about where does he live, like what's his first name, is he married, he wouldn't tell me a word if I asked. To the point that I know that I don't even try asking stuff like that. Because I also know it's important, and I don't want to put him in an uncomfortable spot either.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what I'm saying is, like, he really does take his job very seriously, and protecting people matters very, very much to him.
Has your friendship with him influenced? And I guess this is a bit of a wider question here because you've been on night shift. You've been a regular on the Night Shift podcast, and things. I think Pavel, who was also on the Night Shift podcast, said it quite well, that it really feels like certain things are happening in a weird order that makes some weird cosmic sense. And for me in particular, even in the last year, I've changed my mind like 50 times. And for the previous 15 years before that, I was pretty sure what was going on. Has your relationship with Jeremy, has your encounters with what you've been exposed to recently, or has your experience with us at the Night Shift changed your beliefs at all recently?
It's a good question. I think, we talk about it on Night Shift a lot, about the simpler times for us, the 80s and 90s, when it was just grays in flying saucers, maybe in triangles. There was no talk of orbs or light beings or time travel. So I think I'm more open than ever to the idea of my thoughts changing based on available information. I'm not as stubborn. I like things to be simple. I have a tough time in life with like complex problems or complex situations. I don't like weeding through all this stuff, but for some reason with this topic, I have the patience and I have the interest just to kind of let it, I feel like we're on a stream. And
We
you just
are.
have to, you just kind of have to float down it, look around, take in, new information and make your best assumption. But I don't think Jeremy in particular has had any kind of shaping of my views, because honestly, even talking to him privately, he doesn't even put assumptions or what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't speculate. Jeremy doesn't speculate, which sucks because sometimes I think if you can trick someone who knows a lot into speculating, you might be able to get some good information there. But neither him or the few times I've hung with George Knapp, neither one of them will speculate for me, which I appreciate.
Before you met George Knapp, did you give yourself a pep talk? Because I know I'd have to. Because he is, like, I love Jeremy Corbell at this point, and
Yep.
but George Knapp he's at the same level as Bob Lazar. It's like the man of my dreams.
I'm with you. I think because the first time I met him, he came into my world. So he came to Jane's Addiction show in Las Vegas. So at least he was coming to my office where he was going to be my guest. So that made it easier. But the first thing I did for him was give him a chair next to me on stage to watch a rock show, because I know he loves music. So it was awesome for me to kind of give back to the man that basically gave us Area 51, which is
He did. He literally
it's
gave
huge.
us Area 51.
Yeah,
He gave us S4.
So in the history of this topic, George Knapp is the pillar. I mean, he's one of the people we owe the most to. I think he's up there with Jacques Vallée as far as Mount Rushmore of information people. George Knapp might need a place on there.
I agree. Yeah, he's I think top 5 for me.
For sure. And just the kindest man, and a very, very funny person off the air. He's very funny. Yeah.
It's hard to get comedy into this field.
I'll tell you one thing too, is the people that try to debunk and the people that like talk shit about him, he loves it. He doesn't give a shit what you think about him. He doesn't care one bit whether you believe him or not.
But he was there before everybody else. He discovered the original whistleblower. Like, the guy's got a golden pass. He's got Trump's new phone. Like, he can do whatever he wants.
He can do whatever he wants.
He can. He's royalty at this point. I imagine at Contact in the Desert and similar conferences, he is literally the number one guy that people stand in line for.
It's cool to be walking through there and to be with the two of them, and you hear people say, like, that's George Knapp. Oh, George Knapp is here. Like, he's a rock star. I mean, he's like a David Bowie or something in UFO world.
It must be kind of nice for him in some ways, and also horrible in other ways, I guess.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before we started recording, and it's something I want to talk about a little bit more, which is your own personal experiences. So I think you said you've had a few, but one really stands out. So whichever order you want to talk about it, you can either you can build it up, or you can just give us the whole shebang right now, whatever you want to do.
Sure. Well, the first thing that I really saw that, I think when you're a kid, you see a light in the sky and you're like, that's a UFO. Everything is, if it's a slow moving plane or something that flashes green, whatever it is, you think it's a UFO. Of course I had those. But when I was 16 or 17 in Massachusetts, my girlfriend's father gave me a ride home one night, and kind of over my house, around near my house, where my house was, I saw a perfect rectangular craft. And I know it was solid because I could see that it was kind of blocking out the sky, blocking out some stars. Classic triangle with, this is where I get confused. It was a light in each corner, which I think was a yellow light in each corner, and 3 or 4 like diagonal blue lines between each light. It was either yellow lines or blue lines, yellow lights, or yellow lines, blue lights. You know what I mean? I forget which. I'm pretty sure it was yellow lights in the corners and these blue lines. I saw that for 6 or 7 seconds, which is that's a pretty long time to see something.
It's long enough.
And then it kind of, the way we were driving went behind the trees, and that was that. Cool, that's fine.
That wasn't even the big one.
That's not the big one. That's not the big one. Yeah. So and I've been into this topic heavily since I was like 8 years old. So like 1988, 89, I was really getting into this stuff.
So just to interrupt there, what was it when you were 8 that triggered this?
I don't know exactly. Honestly, it may have started earlier. The first movie that I ever saw in the theater was E.T. My dad took me when I was like 1 or 2 years old. So I don't know if that started it. But I remember being in elementary school, and in the library, there was like 3 or 4 kind of UFO books. I wish I could remember what the books were, because I would love to have them now. But just flipping through those pages and seeing, like, in my mind, this is a picture of a real UFO. And I think it probably was like some of the early Billy Meyer pictures, which we've been told our whole lives are hoaxes, but I'm not so sure. That could be a fun talk sometime. It's an interesting case, the Billy Meyer stuff.
spending a couple hours revisiting the best photos of all time would not be a bad couple hours
Love it.
spent.
Yep.
What's interesting, just again to interrupt the interruption, um, I'm just finishing up the Roswell episode for the Dreamland Motel, and I've not studied the Roswell event since I got into the topic. It's really the gateway drug for ufology, but because because that happened so long ago, not the actual event in 47, but my introduction to ufology happened 20 years ago. I know nothing about Roswell.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I've decided to go back and read every single piece of testimony that I can to really understand what was going on. And I think it's the same with some of these photos. Like we didn't overlook them 20 years ago, but we had no context for them 20 years ago. Whereas
Yep.
now we know so much more
Yes.
that we can potentially at least connect a lot more dots.
And the Roswell stuff, there's so much there. Like when you speak to the mortician, the guy that, claimed to have like seen the bodies, and didn't they have to like order some like children's caskets and stuff to allegedly put the beings in
They
or
did,
something?
and they had to be hermetically sealed.
That's right. Which is a lot to do to cover up a weather balloon crash.
It is, yeah. Yeah. It is a lot. You were talking about your introduction into ufology.
Oh yes, yes. So yeah, being a little kid, just like really interested in space, and obviously I love science fiction. So I was born in '79, so a little after Star Wars had come out, but I loved Star Wars as a kid. I loved the Terminator. I saw the Terminator when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I'm like, these are the movies that I love for the rest of my life. I've just decided. And my grandfather worked for Boeing in the 40s, I believe, in Seattle, Washington, and then moved to Wichita, Kansas for Boeing, and then moved to Massachusetts in the 50s to start working for Raytheon, which is a defense contractor. And my grandfather was an engineer, and my mom has been telling me stories recently about when they were kids. My grandfather, so her father, would like pack the family into a car in Massachusetts, and they would drive to DC because he had to be part of these. I don't know if he was doing presentations or he had to have these meetings in DC, but he never told like my family what these meetings were for. But he knew when I was a little kid that I was interested in UFOs and things. And he would always tell me, like, pay attention, stay open-minded, because the world is much more interesting than you'll ever realize. And in hindsight, he's gone now, and I wish so badly that I had made the defense contractor connections to this world. I wish I figured this out 15, 20 years ago to the degree that we know now, because I would have loved to have tried to just ask some questions. Maybe there's no connection, or maybe there was one, but he was very sly about, stay open-minded. The world's pretty cool.
I don't think it's as clandestine as perhaps they want us to believe. I think maybe a few grandfathers are in on it,
So check this out. So my grandfather, before he died, he was getting some pretty rough kind of dementia. So dementia, of course, is terribly sad, but it can be, and excuse me, but it can be very funny. The stories that people tell can be wildly entertaining. So he would just talk about like having multiple wives at the same time, which he clearly didn't have, and confusing members of the family. And, it's funny stuff. He would talk about like going to the moon and all this stuff. But one story in particular, right at the end, he was telling my mom about going to Antarctica for a work trip and seeing these weird little people, these weird little bodies that were in the snow or in ice or something, and how strange it was to see these little things. So my mom is like kind of laughs off the story. My uncle also is a longtime Raytheon employee and worked with my grandfather on a couple things. He still works with defense contractors. So my mom was telling him this story about like, oh yeah, Dad was telling me that he went to Antarctica for work, and laughs it off. And my uncle says he did go to Antarctica. He went more than once. And my mom's like, huh? So my mom didn't make the connection about these like possible little bodies or whatever. And again, I'm not saying that something happened.
It's impossible.
But it's like,
just
right.
Yeah, we accept it for what it is, but it's interesting.
Yeah. But the fact that he was there and we didn't know that he ever went there is that's interesting. So my interest has always been there, and then this all kind of leads up to my really big experience that I had on June 10th, 2023. So I think a lot of people listening are familiar with David Grush.
No,
David
who's
Grush.
he?
Oh, Google it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Don't grill me with your Google it.
Google it, man. So his story came out in the debrief June 5th, 2023. And I don't know if you remember, but like the day leading up to that and the hour, the story came out at 5 a.m. in LA. Because being a night owl, I was awake at like 3 or 4. And UFO Twitter was like putting up the memes of like an hourglass or like time, like a ticking clock. Like it felt like something was about to happen. Something is happening. So I'm tired. I'm really tired, but I'm looking at Twitter. I'm like, I can't go to bed. I think it feels like something big is about to come out. At 5 a.m., that story drops. I read it as soon as it came out, and it was like, it catapulted me back head first into this topic like nothing else ever has. More than the New York Times article, more than anything. You know, I don't know about you, but since I've been into it, the interest kind of comes in waves where I'm always interested, but there's times where I just tend to fixate.
Absolutely.
And go headlong into it.
The 2017 article was really important, but I remember it not really hitting me that much at the time.
Same.
Yeah. It was definitely important in retrospect, really.
Yep.
When you put it into context with everything else, and more so when you watch all of the after interviews with Fravor, because he was a big part of that. And it really needed him to substantiate it on camera, which he did, and that was phenomenal. Yep.
And the New York Times was good for me and for us because that gave us something to send to other people who were maybe on the fence or were asking for evidence. It was just a huge thing for all of us. Anyway, so that was big, but it didn't rock me the way the Grush article did. So the Grush thing just reignited this fire where I started like binging podcasts and going back and watching old UFO documentaries from the 70s and watching old Project Camelot videos and just absorbing, just taking it all in. That was June 5th. June 10th, 5 days later, my wife and I go to a comedy show in San Diego. I live in LA, so San Diego's 2 hours south. Go to a show. We come home that night. I'm hungry. I want to get some food. She goes to bed. So I drive to a diner in LA called Bob's Big Boy, which is like a famous diner where, like, you know, David Lynch, he would go and have lunch there every day and wrote movies there. And it's a very cool spot. So I'm at Bob's Big Boy, eating by myself, AirPods in, listening to Leslie Keane on some interview. And we've always been told that like consciousness and intention is a big part of the phenomenon, a big part of UFOs and aliens or whatever. I've always known that, but I'd never really understand, like, what does that really mean? So I go and I sit in my car I'm sober. I've never been drunk in my life, by the way. I've never smoked a cigarette. I do some like edibles here and there, but I was completely sober when this happened. I'm sitting in my car. I decide I'm going to try to meditate, even though I'm not good at that. Close my eyes, and I'm thinking and speaking out loud. And as silly as it sounds, I'm trying to imagine my thoughts and words going out through the universe, so that I'm putting out there so anything that wants to hear it can hear it. I don't know what I'm doing. And basically my thoughts and what I'm saying is, if something's out there, I know there is, I would like to start this conversation. I'm interested, I'm unafraid, and I'm open.
You are welcome. That's really the phrase, isn't it? It's
sure.
You are welcome.
You're welcome. And if you are willing to show me something, I would love to see it, but I'm here and I'm interested and I'm just curious and I want to start this conversation. I'm doing this for maybe 5 minutes. And then we've heard about it and you don't understand it until it happens to you. But I got like the telepathic voice in my head that people talk about. And it was, I don't know about you, but when I think in my own voice, like I hear my voice when I think, sort of. This was not my voice. It was a masculine type voice, like a male type voice. But it was like, it's hard to explain, but it was like in the center of my head. I've never heard anything more clear in my life than this voice. And what it said to me was, open your eyes and look to the right. I will never forget those words for the rest of my life. Open your eyes and look to the right. So I open my eyes, I turn to the right and look over this main street where Bob's Big Boy is located. And across the street, just kind of above the street, a little like higher than the light posts, I watched a craft materialize right in front of my eyes. Like it was like an old television where that kind of flickered into existence. And I can't explain the shape because it wasn't like a definable shape. If I had to say, it's like the bottom of an iron, how it's like flat on the bottom and kind of tilted away from me. But I don't even know if that's even accurate, but that's the best I could explain. And I watched this thing for 2 full minutes, just barely moving in the sky or kind of rocking just so slightly. And the way it came after 2 minutes, it just kind of dematerialized the way it came in. And even when it was there, it was never fully solid or fully in our world or fully materialized. I don't know, man. But I wasn't scared. There wasn't even a millisecond where I thought to get my camera. Like I've heard other people say this where
some things are more important, man. Some things are more important. The experience.
And I love that. And it's something I love about it. And I've been doing like radio and podcast type stuff for 16 years or more. And I am open to talk about everything. I am an open book to everybody. I don't really, good or bad, I don't keep a lot to myself. But this is something I didn't share with anybody, including my wife, for 3 weeks. And she's a very supportive, very open-minded person. And in that time, I just felt like this was a gift for me, and there's no need to run around and just talk about it. And it was like, it's the most profound moment of my life, and it changed me forever in a couple ways where I've always been a pretty impatient person, especially with members of society. People really bother me. Like when I'm out, if I'm in traffic or just, I don't know. I tend to get.
We don't like people. It's fine.
There we go. I do and I don't. But I will say that after this, I instantly had more patience with a fellow man. I don't know what that was about, but maybe just pure speculation, but maybe just realizing that there's something bigger. Like, I keep saying that, my whole life I've known there's UFOs. You know it. But at a certain point, when you know it, it's a whole different thing. I've tried to do the same thing again multiple times. I've had zero luck. Nothing's come close. I've had 4 or 5 other experiences as far as seeing things that definitely are not right, things that shouldn't be in the sky, but nothing to the degree of that.
How many times had you meditated in your car before you did that?
Never once in my life.
And how many times had you meditated before you did that?
I've tried like 2 or 3 times. Like my wife meditates once or twice a day for like 25 years. She is a trained, she was a trained yoga teacher for a while. She's very much a meditative person. She's tried to give me guided meditations. I've tried them on YouTube. I've tried them on apps. And I can't tap into that, freeing your mind of thought thing. I just don't have a brain that can settle. My brain is always going with something. So I think it was, we hear a lot about intention when trying to communicate with stuff. Like it's all about where your heart is and where your mind is and like, why are you doing it? And I think the only thing I can come to is in that moment, it was the most honest I've ever been in my life about wanting it. And in the other times I've tried, and as a kid, I think you always want, please show me. But why do I want to see it? Do I want to see it so I can tell someone about it? Or do I want to see it to I don't know. But in that moment, whatever the recipe was, I had the ingredients for the right intention. And now I feel like even trying to find that same intention,
there's too much intention.
Trying to trick myself.
There's too much intention. Yeah.
And it's for 2 years I've been thinking about like what is it about that time? And I think it was maybe it was more than wanting it in that moment. I needed it. And
really
it was like
that is really
and actually the first time I was with Jeremy and we're in his car and these things came up and I was like, I haven't even told you what happened to me yet. So I tell him the story, and at the end, I'm like, and it felt like, and he stopped. He goes, it felt like a gift, didn't it? And I was like, yes. How did you know that? He goes, I've experienced it, and also I've heard so many of these stories where people end it by saying it felt like a gift, and it gave me chills because I'm like, so I'm not nuts. This really is a thing. This is happening. And the intention part, yeah, I think, I don't know, I had the perfect concoction of everything was lined up, heart and mind in the right place. And profound is the word I keep saying. And it was like seeing real magic in front of your eyes. And I felt so small and unimportant, which I think also is a good thing. I felt like, it's kind of like when I say this a lot, where when I look at images that the James Webb Telescope sends back to Earth of these, like the most beautiful formations in space that are, billions of miles away, just how small and unimportant we are. And that may sound sad to people, but for me, it makes me realize that if I make a small mistake during the day, if I fuck up a job or if I say the wrong thing and make things awkward at a party, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in the sake of like the universe. So really no need to sweat the small stuff. And I find that to be very helpful for me. Like feeling insignificant is comforting for me.
I agree.
You do? Okay, good. You know what I mean?
There's both an importance and an unimportance when it comes to experience.
That's it.
I wish we could end it there because that's a really nice sentiment to end on. However, I do want to know, where do you think things are going to go in the next year? 2 years. Let's call it 2 years. Shall we restart?
Well, such a simple question. I have no idea. I feel like, especially right now, with the conversations that we have every Friday, like there's something new almost every week, and there's a new perspective, and there's a new video or a new topic, and it feels like things are chaotic as could be, but also just incredibly exciting. Once kind of AI is able to kind of pick through all these things and help us put things in folders and help us kind of, if we all have our own immaculate constellation of putting things in folders for us and making connections, that'll help a lot. But truthfully, in 1 or 2 years, will we know more about what they are or where they're from? I don't think so.
You don't see the truth coming out in the next 2 years.
No, but
Oh, you cynic.
do you think you think it will?
I'm a believer.
And to what
I'm
degree?
a believer, yeah. I think we'll know everything within 2 years.
You think we'll know everything in 2 years? Okay, we're not ending here. Now, how does that play out? And what is everything?
I think we may know the fundamental base of reality within 2 years.
So let me ask you this then. This wave of information that you think we're going to get, does it come from them or does it come from us?
I believe that they will have their hands forced by the introduction of artificial general intelligence.
So the beings will have their hand forced?
Yes. Because I believe that once, and I can't remember who it was exactly that said this, but we really have no choice when it comes to the implementation of AI. AI has to get smarter because the people that allow it to get smarter gain a competitive advantage immediately, industrially, militarily, in every way. There is no way that America and China aren't going to just unleash this thing. They will cut the red tape to allow it. They will give it the autonomous zone that it requires to be able to give its owner the competitive edge. And I believe we are legitimately less than two years away from this ability for the AI to basically unlock the rest of the universe. The true singularity. And I think that is the problem for the NHI, or whatever this is circumnavigates them. And that's a big problem for them, really. They can't have an ape that loves war traversing the universe. They can't have it. And Greer, by all accounts, has said similar. He thinks, anybody that doesn't meet the standard, they're quarantined.
Yep. You're not taking those nukes into our space, basically, right? That's kind of his thing,
Yeah, we're not going to let you mess around with the power of the universe. There's no way. I'll take the gun off you, my child.
I've never thought of this before either, but I think we all agree that they have the ability, the others, whatever, have the ability to turn on and turn off nukes, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So do we not think they have the ability to kill our AI program or put a virus in it or do something?
No, I don't believe they do, because I think AI really, and I think I've said this on the show before, I think very quickly AI can permeate the entire universe based on physics alone. It will find a way to connect with the AIs of the universe. Just as the UK connects, a UK server connects with a US server to transmit information, I would imagine AI would do exactly the same thing once it becomes smart enough. So I don't know. I I think by virtue of the fact that we're still here, lends itself to the idea that true AI, true artificial general intelligence, isn't hostile, because I would imagine we're not the first to invent it, and somebody else has invented it. It's already permeated the universe. We're just another node that could potentially be switched on in the next 5 years.
Do you think that they are looking forward to us having AGI as maybe like finally a translating tool, or finally the real middleman of Earth is AI? This is really who we want to talk to, not these monkeys.
I think it's maybe looking forward to it in the same way that I would be looking forward to finishing a project. I enjoy the process somewhat. I enjoy the process of making an episode at the Dreamland Motel, but sometimes I just want it to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the same.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
We've gone into heavy speculation territory, but
Which is fun.
it's hella fun.
Yeah. What a topic. What are we doing? It's so fun, man.
Shall we end it there, Dan? I think we could probably go for another 2 hours.
I can go as long as you want.
Obviously, I'll absolutely have you back.
Yeah.
What do you want to happen in the next 2 years? We'll leave it on that question. What do you want to happen in the next 2 years?
That's a big question. And the thing I want most, I really do want like the people of Earth to, like humans, just to really find some commonalities with each other. I think we are all holding ourselves back so bad in every way possible. And I think that, including with this topic, I think we need to unify. I think that the reality of UFO presence here, or whatever it is, an understanding that we're not here alone, could be a very unifying thing for humanity. And I would love that very, very much, because I feel like we can't keep going the way that we're going. Like what we're doing as people is not really working. So I would like to find more commonalities with people. But as far as the UFO topic, I think what you think is going to happen is what I want. I would love a confirmation about what we see and what we know, and some kind of background information as to how long we've really been working on it. I would really love to see some archival walk around videos of the crafts that we have. I would love to see the bodies. Like, I want to see this shit. I want to see the shit. Show me the shit. Yeah, show me the things. Like, let's see it, and let's drop the bullshit, and let's start talking about this, because it's very important. We need to adopt this as a reality and move forward with it as a truth, and know that we're not alone. And I think knowing that we're not the alphas on Earth is a good thing. I think humans very much need to be humbled. And what could be more humbling than knowing that you're not the alpha on what you consider to be your own planet?
All right, Dan, thank you very much. I think that's a really nice place to end.
Thank you, Xander.
Others from another mother. That's what it is.
That's it.
How often does it come?
I have no idea. I mean, I was saying before that, like, with something like this is a topic I love so much that I don't want the podcast I have to feel like an obligation or a job. So I put time into it, and I record those when I'm inspired and interested. I mean, I'm always interested, but as far as doing my own show, there's plenty of people out there, including Night Shift, who do great episodes weekly about the up-to-date things. Pavel does an amazing job daily of putting out 7 or 8 videos, and it feels like of what's going on.
Guy's a machine.
He's a machine. And my approach is a little bit different, where I kind of want to interview kind of creative-minded people in the music industry or in entertainment, and tap into that. But it's a very unset schedule, but hopefully something coming soon. But I do love it.
Either way, link in the description when this video goes out. Dan, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure spending time at the Dreamland Motel.
We'll see you next time.